Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. I want to do a little bit of a video today talking about microaggressions and understanding those in a bit more detail. So I've just facilitated a group with a fantastic bunch of people, and we were looking at respect, and the concept of microaggressions came up. Now, microaggressions, if you don't know, are these ways of communicating with people which might be a bit unconscious, but essentially are perceived as being rude, as being disrespectful, and don't often get the best out of the people around us. So there might be things like eye rolling, cutting people off, folding our arms, tapping on a table if we're impatient, looking at our phone, going silent. There's a number of different things that we can do. But the interesting thing that came out of today wasn't necessarily just about those things that we can do. It was about going, there are some people with certain social styles who perceive the way that they're communicating as acceptable and isn't necessarily a microaggression. So we decided to split the groups into four different people. We had the drivers, they're the more dominant ones, they like to get to the point. We had the analysts, so those are the people who like to take a bit more time, and they're very conscientious, very detail focused, like to take a bit of time to make a decision. We had the amiables, these people are the people, they want to go around and make sure that everyone's got the right idea before we get to a conclusion. And finally, we've got the expressives, so these are people who are really enthusiastic and big picture and really out there. So all of them had their different ways of communicating, their social styles, and each of them came back with these ideas of, oh, well, this could be seen as being a microaggression, but it's really not, it's just the way I communicate. So the drivers were saying, well, if I'm cutting you off because I think that you're going on a bit, that's not a microaggression, that's efficient, I'm getting you to the point. The expressives were going, look, if I'm cutting you off because we're talking about something, it's because I'm excited and I want to get to it with you, so I'm not necessarily trying to cut you off and be rude, but that is essentially what's happening. The amiables are going, if we provide people with nicknames, well, that's because we're being affectionate. We want to increase those relationships, not realizing that actually perhaps we might be excluding others without nicknames, or we're giving people nicknames that perhaps they don't want. And then finally, the analysts, they're saying that if they're sitting there and they're going quiet because they don't necessarily agree, or they just want that extra time to take in the information, and they're sitting back and their arms are folded, that's not a microaggression, because actually they're just taking in the information and they want to be sure of it. So here's a tricky thing about microaggressions. It seems like they're very subjective. It's very easy to put a list down and go, well, these are microaggressions and these are what people are doing, and that's, if you do those things, you're going to seem very disrespectful to other people. But actually, by the sounds of it, there are a number of things which just kind of sit on the fence, which actually might not be a microaggression, which might be very subjective. So I suppose that's the tricky thing. How do you define what's a microaggression and actually what is just a way of communicating? How do we make that distinction between something that's disrespectful and something that's just down to the individual and how they communicate? Would love to hear your thoughts and your comments, so please do leave them. And thanks again for tuning in. Take care.